Hi, my name's Lindy and welcome to the channel. My website is www.lindycowling.co.uk and my email is info@lindycowling.co.uk. The email being for sessions if you want to book a session and also for media. So I'm going to crack on because I'm going to bring two short videos out for you, one after the other. First thing I'd like to say is I hope you are doing okay and keeping well in the interesting times that we are now moving through. I know some of the people I work with internationally have had the virus and recovered from it, or they have relatives that have got it, or they're on lockdown, which a big proportion of planet Earth is virtually under house arrest, shall we say. So pretty much huge swathes of people's lives are being disrupted, and people are adapting to the current situation. So what I'm going to do is first of all give you a big virtual hug and send loads of love if you are being affected or impacted by this in any way. And what I'm going to do is I think I'll title this, title this video, Is the Virus Hijacking Ascension? Is the virus hijacking Ascension? That's the first video I'm going to bring out. Then I'm going to bring another one out after this in a minute. So firstly, what I'd like to say is, no, the virus is not under any circumstances hijacking Ascension, because the virus has come about deliberately. It's not a natural, deliberately been introduced. At this point in history, it has, let's say, been introduced slightly too late, because the predominant majority, over 60, around about 65% of humans are either already on the path into the quantum heart grid, which is an inner and outer. I'm going to call it inner and outer because what's going on inner is reflected and projected outwardly. It's a grid of one's own consciousness. So the majority, that tipping point of 60-65%, are either on that journey into the heart as we speak, or on a soul and spirit essence level have committed themselves, within themselves, perhaps not even without realizing it, but within themselves, to become the embodiment of that grid. So when one has committed on that level, it's almost like they've signed up for it, being either consciously or unconsciously aware. One then it's almost like one is magnetized towards the incorporation of that inner grid. And that inner grid is an interwoven grid with the nature, earth energy as well. The earth moved and we all moved with her in 2020 in consciousness. So when one is committed to that, almost one is magnetized with it. It kind of, even if it hasn't fired up yet, it's about to fire up. I mean, these events will help a lot of people fire up that were on that precipice there. And when one has committed in that way or is on that journey, one cannot be yanked off it. So the current circumstances are almost trying to encourage those people that hadn't yet committed to the heart, or those people that aren't already on the journey of the heart, the quantum heart grid, which is real, tangible, here and activated, solid, physical, action-based grid. Those that hadn't chosen that yet, and perhaps were never going to choose it, but those that hadn't yet, or were kind of wavering about which direction to go in, things such as the events we're having now is like a giant pooper scooper, really. It's like a giant pooper scooper trying to scoop up those people that were wavering in order to pull them onto the old linear grid that is heavily programmed, heavily contaminated, not in humanity's highest interests. So that's what that's all about. But because the virus, there was always going to be something, and this won't be the only thing, there'll be other things to come in the time ahead. Because of the year it's been introduced, because many people that were working to establish that grid managed to hold back, let's say, that negative intervention, it's been introduced too late, really. So the collateral damage will be much, much less and much smaller than it would have been had it been introduced 5 years ago, something like that, or even 2 years ago, or even 1 year ago. But also there are the bigger agenda behind it, which is not so much the virus, but one's universal law changes, one world order behind it, one government, one law, one vaccine, one identity card, etc., etc., etc. That will be far from successful and won't be able to be implemented, that dystopian artificial grid agenda behind the linear grid, in the same way. And if you were to say to me, are the people or the things behind that linear grid malevolent? Yeah, they're malevolent. They've been there for a very long time, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. But we are reaching a time now where all that is going to be exposed, and people will have the knowing on this, the instinct on this, the intuition on this, and find out the truth for themselves. And the truth will be revealed as part of their own authentic truth and coming into their truth. So the ascension process, although there have been multiple attempts to derail it, those attempts have not succeeded. And humanity have got to a point where those that had already signed up for, aligned with, or have already on a deep level decided they're going to go to the direction of the quantum heart, to become fully who they are, to incorporate and embody their higher self, to come fully into their mastery and fully into their true, compassionate, loving power. There are so many that have committed to this or begun on this journey that the ascension process cannot be derailed. Can it be delayed or damaged? I'm not going to say delayed because it's already happening. Like I said in videos at the end of 2020 and the beginning of there we are, I'm running a year ahead, look. At the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, like I said in those videos, this shit just got real, is what I said, even before news of the virus got announced. So I said physical, shocking change, shocking wake-up calls, shocking amount of people going, you know, other things happening, the truth being revealed. It can't be derailed. Actually, it's 100% on track. The ascension process, switching over from the programmed linear grid, the linear programmed brain grid, to the non-linear, multidimensional quantum heart grid, that switch over in one's consciousness, is more than underway. It's 100% on track and is unfolding as we speak. But I'm going to say there is, collateral damage can happen, in that there is this pooper scooper thing going on, this picking off of people, as many as possible, that they can get aligned with this other grid of consciousness. So number one, the ascension process has not been derailed, and that's globally. It hasn't been derailed. Now, because everybody is a unique stitch in this tapestry of consciousness, so there is, like, let's call it a tapestry, just as a way of being metaphorical, of explaining it. There's a tapestry of consciousness, and each person being a stitch a unique stitch in that tapestry of quantum heart grid multidimensional consciousness. What can happen? So you're all contributing to the overall ascension process. You are therefore part of the overall ascension templates, which other stitches that weren't part of that, those that were signed up for it but hadn't leapt on board yet, can imprint on in mass, and it helps them to become part of that process, that inner quantum multidimensional heart grid process, ascension. And also, if we bring this down to an individual stitch level, so an individual stitch level, meaning you're all a stitch, we're all a stitch. Of course, that when we walk it back to the very human level, it means that you are being called upon again, just as you've been called upon for a number of years now, but this now being imperative, because this grid is here, solid, real, and you're being incorporated, if you want to be and remain the embodiment of it, to walk your walk, which means living your truth, dealing with your stuff as it comes up, dealing with what's being projected at you, dealing with what you're projecting at others, dealing with the shadow stuff that comes up, letting it pass through quickly, being very honest with yourself, being very straightforward with yourself, being very compassionate with yourself, getting the assistance where you need it. There are multiple tools and videos on my channel to assist you with this stuff, that's like the Core Soul Wound 1, Inner Child Wound 1, Codependency Program, URL programs, how to detach yourself from all of these. And really on a day-to-day basis, you know, making decisions that are authentic and involve coming into your heart. Excuse me. I have a very croaky throat in the mornings. This has been a long-term thing. It's because I'm living in a house that has mold in it, which is very toxic, and I'm highly allergic to mold. So in the mornings, when I've been breathing it in all night, I'm very congested in the mornings. It wears off by lunchtime, which is why I rarely record videos in the morning, but it's the only time I've got. And I rarely do sessions in the morning, unless I'm working with people in Australia and New Zealand, where because of the time difference I have to do that. I try to avoid it because I know I'm going to be all congested in the morning, but it eases up as the day goes on. So I don't have the coronavirus. And while we're on to that subject of calling it the coronavirus, it would be interesting for you to do your research. There are umpteen coronaviruses. Even a common cold is called a coronavirus. So when they keep calling it coronavirus, it's really irritating and it's misleading. That virus is COVID-19 or whatever it's called. When they keep calling it coronavirus and people having a coronavirus, if you tested probably 80% out of the population, they've got some kind of virus in their system, because they're so commonplace. Most of them don't even know they've got one in their system, and you could still call it a coronavirus. So that's an inaccurate way of describing it, an inaccurate terminology. They need to be calling it what it is and not keep saying, you know, under that blanket term, which even, you know, you can call the common cold. So really, in order to fast track, and really I was going to say fast track, it couldn't really be going any faster, your ascension process, it is a question really of, with your boots on the ground, going through your daily process, dealing with the stuff that's coming up for you. Yes, some of it will be your normal, let's say, daily stuff through your, let's say, your personality, your history that you've had in this life, on this timeline that you're aware of. Other of the stuff will be coming up will be the collective sense and the collective feeling, the archetypal stuff, the ancestral stuff. But at the end of the day, if you're being hit by all of that or just a portion of that, it's still got to come up through you. And how it sticks to you, I've said this many times on my channel, is you have to have at least 20% of the same component. So if you're processing mass fear or you're processing mass anger, you must have at least 20% of that in you for it not to pass through, but for it to stick in your system. So you need to be aware of that and deal with your 20%. Some of you might have much more than 20%. Some of it might be 80% yours. But you need to do your stuff. Now, being under virtual house arrest, which a lot of you are in this enforced lockdown situation, it does give you the opportunity to do that. You can't be distracted from it very much because you're literally in a situation where you are getting an opportunity to go inward. Even those of you that have children and a house full of people, you're kind of in an enforced small space really, and you're being invited to kind of go within this introspection. And even those of you that are using their time to become more creative, that fires up the energy of the heart again. Creativity and the energy of creation in the heart are all linked, intrinsically linked, and this sense of kind of community and wanting to help other people, and we're all in this together. This is all wonderful, helpful things for the heart. This isn't things that are going to get people out of the heart. It's quite the opposite. And people connecting up in ways that they didn't before, and the importance of that and what's important to one, and it's bringing about that compassion and humanity in a lot of people. These are also traits of ascension and the heart. This was also help awaken many people that have chosen the quantum heart multidimensional timeline within themselves. So this will help significantly. So Ascension has not been derailed. This is all part of Ascension. These, I'm not even going to call them speed bumps. We knew there would be intense resistance to humanity standing in their power, because those that don't want humanity to stand in their power don't like it. They don't care what they have to do to prevent this timeline being real, but the timeline is already real. It's not hovering in the balance, it's here. So all they can do is get a giant pooper scooper and scoop as many up that hadn't quite committed to that yet. Like collateral damage. I'm not suggesting that everyone that leaves the earth plane, that passes over, hadn't gone into the heart. That wouldn't be fair and that wouldn't be accurate. What I am saying is that on our timelines and our realities, that we have windows and doors where we can choose at certain points whether we're going to exit through door 1 or whether we're going to stay for a bit longer and exit left wing a bit later, 5 or 10 years later. This is an exit point for some souls that wish to exit now. So it doesn't mean to say that they failed in any way. Some of them didn't want to ascend in the human body. They want to do it out of the human body in another reality, another timeline, or over the other side. And some of them, you know, it was just their time to go. Even through this man-made thing, it was their time to go. So it doesn't mean to say they failed in any way. So the overall process is 100% on track and nothing's gone wrong. This isn't Armageddon. This will propel many thousands more into the heart. When people call this the event and the event is happening and all this kind of stuff, I don't align with that at all. I never have. It's a thing, but it's not the thing. It's a thing, and there will be many more things until this old process, which is trying very hard to hang on, is disposed of. And there will be, a coming down of many of the fabric of the institutions. There will be what remains, and what is reformed and created will be in its pure form and not the distorted, malevolent form that a lot of it has been in. So huge, exposure of some of the very malevolent energies behind much of what you considered was your linear reality. And amazing things coming out of it. It's almost like Phoenix coming out of the ashes. I could apply this to each and every one of you that is on that quantum heart grid of ascension. Phoenix rising from the ashes. So this is part of the massive changes. You can't have humanity go through massive inner changes without it changing the external world around them. Because there is an interplay of consciousness and reaction between you and the external world around you. Much of you and much of us hadn't got to the stage yet where we were creating our reality as such. We were more stumbling around blindfolded and reacting to our reality. So the old linear grid is a reactionary grid. So to create one's reality as one becomes more conscious is all part and parcel of that. It's creating one's reality, creating the things on one's timeline, and that is where you're all headed, and that's where you're 100% on track to head. So apart from being sensible and having to be kind of balanced and, you know, again, connecting with nature, if you are in a country and you're allowed to go out into nature or walks, nature is fantastic. If you're allowed and you can get hold of things to bring nature in, like into your environment, like plants, flowers, things like that, that's fantastic. And if you can't do any of those things, you're just locked into a tenement block somewhere and you're not allowed out, you can connect with nature by doing it via looking at film, listening to CDs, nature sounds, music. It's the next best thing, and your neural pathways and your body will respond accordingly to doing that. So try those things as well. If you can't get into nature, you're not allowed to, then connect in that way, and it will help your body and will help your system. So Ascension has not been derailed. This is 100% on track to where we were all and are going. And I say we're all, again, those that wish to do it in the human vehicle are going. Those that don't, those that are opting out of that, or those that have chosen something else, won't be. But for the millions and millions that are, it's 100% on track. It's 100% on track. Nothing has gone wrong. So on that note, I'm going to love you and leave you, because I'm going to go straight on to the next video, which is in alignment with what this video is, and shows you how to connect in and wire into the quantum heart grid multidimensional state of consciousness. It shows you how to fire that up and keep in alignment with it to strengthen and enhance your quantum multidimensional timeline, which, if you've signed up to ascend in the human vehicle, you are on. On that note, I'll love you and leave you. Hope you stick with me for the next video. Take care, and see you in a minute.